Now talk.
Hello, bitches. Hello, motherfuckers! I'm not drunk, but I really would like to be. Let's fucking do this shit. Hello, it's me. You should know who this is by now, but if you don't, just fucking look at the podcast description and bullshit, because ain't nobody got time to explain this shit to you. It's a hot mess express episode, and you're welcome. So this is another episode of I've Always Been This Way, and today I'm going to explain to you how I survived motherhood. Motherhood actually, for me, is going to last like forever, I guess, until I'm in grandmotherhood and great-grandmotherhood and whatever. But I'll always be a mom. And I'm very fortunate that I have 3 kids that not only I love a lot, that I really actually like a lot. They're all good humans, but they used to be annoying little shitheads. But they were my annoying little shitheads, so it was great. I mean, they did a lot of annoying things, but they were also adorable and cuddly and cute and all that other bullshit. But I'm not going to talk about how cute they were in this episode. I'm going to talk about some of the annoying things that they did. So, really, I guess, with Reagan, this is not even her fault, besides the fact that I must have overfed her and she had these giant fat baby legs, which, by the way, were absolutely adorable. And when she started running all over the place, they just turned into muscles. So she had these giant baby legs, and she decided that it was a good idea to climb anything, anything she could. She would be a crazy hot mess. So one day, I don't know what she was trying to do. I don't know if she was trying to like slide her body through the slats of the crib or whatever. I don't fucking know. And she got one of her legs, or actually maybe both of her legs, caught in the crib. And I could not get her out. And as I was trying to get her out, she'd scream and scream and scream. And I guess in those moments, and there are a lot of crazy moments like that, I didn't really have common sense to think if I just spread the bars a little bit, she could shimmy her little juicy leg out of there. Didn't work that way. So my husband used to work about 5 minutes away from our first house, which is where we brought Reagan home to. So I called Michael and I said, Reagan's got her leg caught in the crib. So he's like, okay, what am I going to do about it? I said, well, you have to get your ass home and help me, because I don't know how to get this little fat leg out of the crib without like lubing her up with oil or whatever. And I don't want to like baste her, so I just wanted him to come home and help me do it. So he comes home and he, spreads the bars, and so I can like yank her out of there, and it's all good and fine. The funny part of the story was not so much that she got caught in the crib, but the fact that when Michael went back to work, he had not zipped up his zipper from coming home. And because he had not zipped his zipper up, they're like, oh yeah, we saw how you got the leg out of the crib. So they teased him for the rest of the day and God knows how long. But it was very funny. And in those moments when you think that the kids are going to drive you like completely insane, just remember the times that like they did something, hopefully this was unintentional, and then it just turned out to be something funny and a story that we still talk about a lot. So she wasn't really being bad. She's just constantly curious, which she still is, and that's a great thing. Grant was an easier, like more laid back kid, like overall, but he could go psycho. He could go psycho on you. Like, it was like so scary. Grant could be like, on like the day would be beautiful outside, and then something would happen and the sky turned black and he would go nuts. But like basically with him, if he had his pacifier, he was good to go. And that's kind of like how he is now, except his pacifier is Coors Banquet. But that's okay. That's okay. That's who he is. And then Riley, like I just had, where I was trying to coordinate like how to get them to shut the fuck up and lay down for naps and stuff. So I put her in a crib tent, and I guess the crib tent at the time was like, I guess if you lived in some rundown skank apartment and like you're afraid rats were going to get to your kid or whatever, you put them in this crib tent. But I just used it as like a little baby cage. And I will not apologize for that, because that child climbed out of the bed one night, and before the crib tent, climbed out of the bed, and she came right to the side of my bed and she tapped me and she goes, "Hey mama." The bitch nearly gave me a heart attack. Hence the crib tent. And so that's when that started. And I got judged by all sorts of people, but you know what? I don't give a fuck. They're all alive today. They're all healthy. They all have their appendages. They're good. I think that Michael and I did a pretty damn good job raising them. But while we were raising them, they did try to make us crazy. And I think that's, God's way of saying, you wanted this baby, now you got to put up with some bullshit. It's not all like cute, sweet smiles and them doing whatever they're told. Nope, that is not what being a parent's about. There's some really bizarre, awkward, hard times you have to deal with, but it's all good. When Reagan was like 18 months, she was a little defiant shit. And she knew it. And so one day I'm like, because you could not keep a caged animal in the cage all the time. So I have to let her out of the house to like either play in the backyard or walk down the sidewalk or whatever. And so she was like going toward the street. And I said, "Reagan, don't you dare go in that street." That little bitch turned around, looked straight at me, and stuck her little chubby 18-month foot on the street. And I just happened to be videotaping it, and you see the videotape going like black because I beat the shit out of her. I mean, not the shit, I didn't beat the shit out of her, but I made it very clear to her that that was unacceptable. And then I resumed videotaping after she was no longer crying hysterically, and that was a day. But I don't really recall her doing that to me again intentionally. But she was the one that would try my patience the most. And I do believe in spanking children. And I spanked my kids the most from probably, I guess, from the time they could walk till they were about 3. Because after they're about 3, they actually understand, like, if you fucking don't listen to me, I am going to beat your ass. And you already know that you don't like it. So that's how that went. Grant, like I said, he was chill until he wasn't. And then one time, like, he just, like, got psycho, like, with his Halloween candy. Like, he had this crazy obsession for candy. Like, I think he got, like, a sugar high. And so Michael came home from work and said to Grant, like, I guess Grant was asking him for some candy before dinner. And Michael's like, "You don't need that garbage." And so Michael put it up in the highest spot of the kitchen. And thank God that Grant wasn't a climber like Reagan was. So it wasn't a huge problem for him he wasn't going to go up and get it. But after dinner, he threw himself onto the ground in the kitchen and was like screaming, "I want my garbage, I want my garbage." And this is one of those times where you want to discipline the kid, but you're actually behind the door frame of another room, like laughing your ass off because shit is just hilarious. And that really wasn't a punishable offense, I guess, but he had some sugar issues. And the irony is now he doesn't even eat candy or anything that I'm aware of. So he's kind of mellowed out. Maybe he had all the candy he needed between 18 months old and 3. I don't know. Riley was a funny little thing as well. All three of my kids are so different. Riley was a little bit more cautious, a little bit more clingy. Yeah, clingy is a good word, but not in a bad way. Like, I kind of liked it. I mean, it's sick. I have a sickness. I have 2 dogs now who are also somewhat clingy, and I kind of like it, and there's something wrong with that. Something really, really not right with that, but I do like it. So, Riley came home from school one day, and she said, maybe she was in kindergarten, and let me preface this story with, I was very careful when the kids were young about cursing. Clearly now I say fuck and shit and goddamn it and motherfucker and what else? A whole bunch of words that I like. I say them all the time now, but when they were little I couldn't because they were all like little parrots. Riley was especially a parrot. And so anyway, she comes home from kindergarten. She says, Mom, I have to tell you something. I said, okay. She goes, promise you're not going to be mad. And I was like, oh, jeez. I have to promise because I don't ever want, or didn't at the time ever want my kids to be in a situation where something happened to them at school and they couldn't tell me. So I had to agree that she would not be in trouble. She says, Mom, I have a new favorite word. I said, oh, you do? She says, when I say it, it makes me feel good. Like when I'm frustrated. And she spoke just like that. She was very articulate, as were the other 2. She said, it just makes me feel good. When I say it, I said, well, is it a bad word? She goes, oh yeah, it's bad. And I said, well, you want to tell me in my ear? And so she gets real close to me. And I said, well, tell me what it is. And she goes, crap. And I said, your favorite word's crap? And she said, yes. I said, Riley, I totally understand. She says, the other day I dropped a crayon on the floor and I just set it under my breath and I felt so much better. I said, there are certain words that like that we can use, that we do use to kind of release like aggravation or whatever. I said, but best that you continue to say that under your breath. Just so y'all know, excuse me, I did not curse in front of the kids until Riley was like in 3rd grade. Because like I said, they would have all been going into school saying, what's up, motherfuckers? Like, I'm sure that would have happened if I'd been cursing. Now, I'm not saying that I was ever in the car and something happened and I said, shit. But I was very, very careful about cursing. That's why I have to make up for it now. Because I held it in for so long. You just can't do that to me. It's just not right. And I did it to myself because I was trying to be a good mom, blah, blah, blah. Annoying. So, like I said, generally my kids were, and still are, very good kids. One time, I was in Target with all 3 of them, which was a challenge in itself. So I was in Target, and Reagan was being a little bitch, and the other 2 probably were also out of control, but I specifically remember Reagan being, like, she and I were going to have a verbal altercation in Target, and we did. So she's like, I want such and such, or she was bitching about being at Target. I don't fucking know. What she was complaining about was irrelevant. And I said, Reagan, if you do not be quiet, I'm going to beat your butt in Target. And she's like, you're not going to do that. She's like, Mom, there are cameras everywhere in Target. And if you beat me in Target, then you're going to end up in jail. And I said, little girl, I am not afraid of jail. I'm not afraid of jail at all. In fact, a mom of 3 kids might enjoy a night or 2 in jail. And I continued to explain to her, I'm like, I get to go to sleep when I wanted. I would, and now that I'm thinking about it, I probably wouldn't be able to take a shit by myself because I guess there's a toilet in the room in the jail. I haven't been to jail, so I don't know. But like somebody would be feeding me and taking care of me and turning the lights out for me at night and, locking the door to my room so no weirdos could get in. I mean, those all sounded like great things to me when I had a bunch of screaming toddlers in Target. So I basically said to her, without cursing, but it sounds better for the story's sake, is try me, bitch. Try me, because I'm not afraid to go to jail. So I think at that point, all three of the kids knew that acting up in public was not the best idea because they thought I wouldn't mind going to jail and was willing to go to jail, and I didn't have a problem with it. Another time, Grant says, I don't know, like I said, I don't remember the details of why they were being shitheads or whatever, but one time Grant goes, Mom, I'm going to call the police on you. I said, really? I said, what do you think is going to happen? I said, do you think that when you call the police and you say, my mom was mean to me or my mom didn't let me go play or whatever, that I'm going to be removed from the house? And I said, Grant, let's just be clear about this. If you accuse me of child abuse, which I did not abuse the kids, beating them on an occasion is not illegal, and I didn't beat them really, just spanked the shit out of them. Beating, spanking, whatever. I just believed in that, and I still do. If they act up, well, they're kind of bigger than me. I probably won't beat the shit out of them now, but. So I told Grant, I said, you go ahead and call him. I said, just make sure you enjoy your time in foster care. He says, what? I said, yeah. I said, you call the police. They're going to remove you from this house. And your new name's going to be Grant Foster because you're going to end up in foster care. So maybe I went a little bit too far. Just maybe, because he cried for like an hour about not wanting to be in foster care and whatever. He never said he was sorry for calling the police, or, excuse me, ooh, cut that out. He never apologized to me for, threatening to call the police, but he was pretty remorseful and never threatened to call the police again. Now, did he actually? No, he didn't. Nah, he didn't. And then generally, like, the three of them, like, if I would be taking them to see Santa, okay? If any of you have taken your kids to see Santa, like, the irony is they're such little shitheads when you're getting them ready. They don't want to wear the matching outfits. They don't want their hair brushed. They don't want this. They don't want that. And then they act like little assholes in the line. Reagan really was the least difficult in the line because there was always lots of mirrors and she could look at herself, which she really liked to do. So the irony is just such a hassle to take them to go see Santa and stuff. But when they got up there, they were like little precious angels. So I guess that made me continue to take them every year because I was like, okay, they're a pain in the ass, but they're cute and they deserve some gifts from Santa. They're good kids. Like, I'm going to go along with this and tolerate their bullshit, which I did. Sometimes, when the kids were little and we'd go to church, sometimes they'd scrap and stuff. But frankly, I'm the worst behaved in church, so I really could never correct their behaviors too much in church because I was also, and still am also, kind of wiggly, and I like to poke Michael in the arm and write notes and stuff when I know I'm supposed to be paying attention. But it's just so hard for me to not like notice every little thing that's going on, whether the pastor like hits a really bad note singing, or the violinist sounds crazy, or the organist sounds like he's playing Dracula music that day. Like, I have a very hard time keeping myself composed. So disciplining the kids in church was not my strength because I was also a horrible human in church, and I still continue to go, but I try to behave most of the time, just not especially good at it. So just some funny things with the kids. And I just want to say a few little funny things because they were so funny and great. So, and still are. So Grant, one time, like, we lived for several years in Tampa, so it was about like an hour from Disney. And so we would everybody would get in the car, pile up in the car. And he was just so relaxed, so used to me packing the diaper bag. Even though they were older, we brought still like a backpack and stuff. And I guess he thought he didn't need to wear shoes because I was going to bring them. But I didn't, because I assumed like kids, once they know how to tie their shoes, they would know to put shoes on. So we get to Disney, he has no shoes. He has no shoes. So, I mean, we were fortunate enough that we could afford to buy him. We were fortunate enough. Let me start that over. Anyway, so he forgot to wear his shoes. But we were fortunate enough to be able to purchase him a pair of Crocs immediately upon arrival to Disney. And maybe that was his way of getting his, the little Mickey head Crocs. I don't know. One funny thing that Riley did was when she was older, maybe like 8 or 9, we'd been living in Georgia for several years, and we were very lucky to have lived in a home that's pretty big and it can house a lot of people. So summer times would come and we'd have a lot of people over. And one time she asked my sister Kay, "When are you guys getting out of here? When are you leaving? Y'all need to go home." Like, Riley just wanted her own space and wanted everybody to get out of it. And my sister just laughed and she's like, I get it. It's a lot. It's overwhelming. So each of the kids could be very funny. And then Reagan just had her various and assorted antics and diva behaviors. Primarily, like, one of her funny diva behaviors is she always liked to see herself in photographs, see herself, like when we had like the old school camcorder, you'd flip the little thing around so she could see herself. And that turns out to be an excellent thing for me because now she is helping record my podcasts and doing all that. So I appreciate my little diva and my other 2 kids as well. And it's a joy to be a mom, but it's also a little motherfucker to be a mom. You're tired, it's a pain in the ass and all that. But I'd do it again 100 times, more than 100 times if I could, to see their little precious faces. So on that note, I'm out of here. Y'all have a good night, good day, whatever fucking time it is in your world. And I've always been this way. Fuck off. Bye.